All right, welcome everybody. I have a special guest. I have Deb here, and Deb is leading this training today, and I'm really excited for her to share. She's feeling like she's going to get vulnerable, and that's uncomfortable for her, but I'm super grateful she's here and she's going to do that. So we just want you to let us know if you're here joining us, live, or if you're here on the replay or catching it later. And make sure you give Deb a little shout out or you recap in the comments in terms of like, hey, what's your aha moment? How did you connect with Deb and her story? And what's your takeaway? So let's start off, Deb. Let's let everybody know who you are. Who's Deb?
I am a mom with two children. They're 21 and 19, and I'm married. And my husband works full time. I work full time. I'm a minister in two churches, and I also pastor into the community. So I have a busy schedule with lots of funerals and weddings and my own responsibilities and two services on Sundays. And it just goes on. I volunteer in the hospital and the local nursing homes as well and provide pastoral care and services there as well. And so I'm just really happy to be here. And I like to be active, but I was getting sedentary. And so I wanted to find myself again.
Yeah, I do want to highlight too, because even when we were coaching together, your schedule was all over the place, right? Like you didn't necessarily have your weekends free, you didn't necessarily have all your evenings free, depending on where the services were, what was going on in the community. You were kind of all over the place, so that was something that we had to navigate and figure out how to work yourself into that. Did I highlight
Yes.
that right?
Yes, for sure.
Okay,
Mhm.
so you came to me and you were like, you reached out and you were like, hey, I want to do coaching. So first, you had known a couple of people who had gone through the coaching process, and two, when we had first met, you said, okay, my goals are I want to move again, I want to feel healthy, I want to lose weight, and I want to feel really good in my body. So can you just like paint a picture of where you were when we first started and why you reached out? Because I think that that's going to connect to a lot of women.
Well, first of all, a good friend of mine, Jen, had told me about your program. She was doing amazing things, and she did it. She started a couple of years ago, and I knew I wasn't ready then, and I knew it was something I was really excited about that for her. And I thought that would be great. I wish I could do it. And then this year, I just got to the point. Last year, I had a pulmonary embolism, and my health kind of just everything in my life. I turned 50 this year, and everything just kind of exploded for me in an aha moment that I wanted to be healthier. And my parents both had diabetes. And so I had lots going on in my brain, and I was all over the place. And I needed some focus. And Jen said, you would be the place to go. And she said, she tells it like it is. And I said, I think that's really what I need right now. And so I took the plunge.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting part there is because most women will wait until everything's in alignment, like everything is going smoothly in their life, and then they'll be like, okay, now I have the space to do this. You're the opposite.
Yeah.
Your life was in like a misalignment. There was a lot of like chaos. There was a lot of things going on, and you were like, yeah, now's the time. Can you explain, like, maybe give us some insight into like because it's not very common that someone would look at coaching when everything's going on. They would wait until all of it's resolved. Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Uh, yeah. First of all, I didn't think I really deserved to feel better or get better. I just kind of took it like I'm getting older, and this is the way my life's going to be. And that moment was just like over the 6 months leading up to. And I lost my step grandmother and was reliving some of my grief from my father 5 years before that, and didn't realize all that was happening. And I just felt like I was lost and separated from God, even though I knew I know God's always here. I'm preaching it every Sunday, and but living it in my own mind and heart was really hard because I just felt so disconnected from me and God. And so I never thought I would. Well, first of all, I always spend the money on my kids for hockey and competitive hockey in the past and everything else. And so thinking of spending money on me to make me healthy was never a priority. And and it was something that Jen said, well, we spend all this money on our kids and it's a great thing for them. How come it can't be a great thing for us? And wow. So sometimes you need the insight of someone who's objective.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you also mentioned that you felt really disconnected from God because that really resonated with us on our first call is that there was really a misalignment between what you were preaching, what you know to be true in the core of your soul and your heart, but that you weren't feeling that connection. And then at the same time, you said, I wasn't really feeling worthy of that connection, and I
Yeah,
wasn't feeling worthy of investing in myself either, but I took the leap.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time I didn't want to admit that to myself, and it was by being vulnerable with you that I was like having insights. And for anybody who doesn't journal, and because I know journaling, I always recommend it to everybody else, but I know how vulnerable it makes me feel. So it was because of you, Cindy, that I got back to it, and I just can't believe how much more aligned I feel even doing that. That's even apart from all the healthy eating and
Yeah.
exercise.
But we did like we're going to go into exercise and nutrition and all that, but we what we kind of learned in the journey is one, you felt misaligned, so we needed to bring that alignment back. Two, we had an all or nothing approach to life. And
Yes.
especially when we look at our dieting history, we had an all or nothing approach to that. Three, we had a hard time setting boundaries. And so we looked at boundaries around what it means to be a good daughter and what it means to respond to the needs of your aging mother and who needs you. And we looked at grief. There was a lot of unresolved grief there, and it was keeping you, all that was kind of keeping you stuck in your health, stuck in your mind, but stuck in even, you're taking a course to move forward, and it was like you're stuck. There was
Mhm.
just a lot of stuckness there. So even though this journey was about getting you moving again, losing weight and feeling healthy, there were a lot of other components that got brought in to make you feel more connected, more in alignment, but also to be like, that's not really about this. It's really about this.
Yes. Yes. So much mindset. So much more about my mindset to allow me to feel free and reconnect. And once I started to reconnect, once I started to reconnect and get in alignment with God and knowing who I am again, then it seemed that all the hard stuff, the hard part of it kind of started to melt away. And then I could start to see where the boundaries, where I've always had difficulty with boundaries because I was always the peacemaker and in my family growing up. And so that has come into my job and when I serve others and making other people happy. And I know it's going to be a lifetime of resetting boundaries, but this is a good start. A
Yeah.
really good start.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with nutrition. Okay. So, because you were used to, you had done like, for example, like herbal magic, you had done various different dieting programs like that. So, what did you learn about nutrition that you didn't really understand in all those other times?
Oh, well, I used to be able to tell you how many calories were in every single food, and don't eat carbs, and I could tell you everything not to eat in every program I had. And so when I came to you, I was really confused as to what I could and couldn't eat.
Yeah.
So what I learned and what I will do again is the elimination diet of to get started, because by eliminating all the different areas of food and like caffeine, if anybody thinks they can't go without caffeine, I can guarantee you you can, because I did. And it's not like I have to have a lot, but I always relied on 1 to 2 cups in the morning, um, and sugar, eliminating that, and just eating natural sugar. Knowing it is one thing, but doing it and eliminating it over a period of time, and gluten, I realized that I'm not a really, I don't really love products with gluten in that much. And it's amazing what my brain tells me when I hear it on, if I'm watching a TV show and I hear something or see something on TV and I think, oh, that looks so good. And then I laugh to myself and I'm thinking, why am I thinking about that right now?
Yeah.
So I've got a mindset that it stops to think about the nutrition and value, which I didn't used to be conscious of.
Yeah, and just for the, I just want to pause there. So, because we didn't eliminate the whole time we were coaching, it was just a gut reset that we did because we want to get, then there's a couple of other things besides eliminating that
Oh,
we're doing during that time period so that we're getting the gut ready for what it is that we're going to do. And then we're introducing those foods back. So, sugar was back, gluten was back, caffeine was back, and everything while we're coaching
yeah.
together. And we're looking to see what the body does with all that.
And I learned a lot because I learned supplements through Dr. Christina, watching on some of your channel of just saying, talking in conversation with her. And I was introduced to her, and she's a naturopath doctor, and she helped me to change over from, I was getting cramps in my calves and my feet, and just a healthy natural supplement of magnesium rather than the magnesium I was using. And just little things, just tweaking just a tiny little thing has made a huge difference, even in the clarity of my mind. So eliminating those things from my diet, I didn't realize how much I was, how much over consuming I was having of some of those foods. And so then it was just after resetting, I felt so much better.
Yeah. Talk about though, because one of the things we do in our coaching program is you do eat sugar. You
Hmm.
can eat some processed foods, not that we're doing it all the time, but you are doing that. And that was brand new to you.
Yeah.
You talk about like that, like you now you're telling your coach you're eating sugar and then what that was like for you.
Um, so initially I was extremely fearful. I thought, oh my gosh, now I have to eat this, and what am I going to do when I go back to this? And on one of our calls, you just calmed me down and said, whoa, whoa, back up. I'm on the journey with you, so we're going to do this together. And so what I like is that you journal as you take your meals and so forth, and communicate with you. And what I realized is I can have a smaller piece of something and be mindful while I'm eating it and enjoy it. Or sometimes I was with people and they were having something, and I was like, that's great. They can enjoy it. I'm not feeling like I need to, and I didn't feel the pressure that I used to eat when other people were eating to make them happy or think I was making them happy. And I realized that they don't really care. And so I just really looked at them and said, I had a conversation and enjoyed my company with them instead of focusing on the food.
Yeah. And I love too because correct me if I'm wrong, like you being more present in your food and more mindful also gets you more connected and present with God. Like because you have
Oh,
that space, right?
100%.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing when you when we first started coaching is that when you had high periods of stress, that's when you would have like a busy brain during your sleep. So your sleep would be interrupted because you'd be having lots of thoughts, but also you would stress eat. So
Yes.
can you talk about like where that was at and then where you're now at with that?
Um, so what has really helped is the journaling and part of that to go to sleep. So an hour before I go to sleep, I sit down and journal, and I have three questions I ask, and the third one, well, one of them is, what am I grateful for? But where have I seen, where has God been present for me has been really fundamental in, okay. And so just taking time at the end of my day, an hour before, then I'm not on my screen, and um I'm not watching television and that. So I don't have it down 100%, that's for sure, but I'm getting there. I'm
Yeah.
getting there. And but I do notice that if I have an extremely busy brain, that's the time I really need to stop everything else and just sit down and write. And it might only be a couple of minutes, it might be 10 minutes, might be half an hour. It just depends on what comes up. And I'm much more open to that now than I was initially. Because sometimes it gets really emotional and vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes like with you, once we started opening up and being vulnerable in our journal and in our coaching, then it started to open up other things as well. And so then it became about, we thought it was over here, this thing over here, but it was really like, oh, now I'm seeing how this is connected to that and why I'm thinking this.
Yes.
I'm trying to be kind of vague about it without being too like I don't want to be specific about things that happened, but you would say things like I just need to put it in my schedule and do it. And then it wasn't happening, and then we could see, well, then that we could see why that wasn't happening because it was connected to the boundary thing over here.
Right. And I think one of the most challenging boundaries is my aging mom. And so because a text would pop up, and I could be in the middle of my day working, and she would just randomly ask if I could pick something up from the grocery store, or if I could drop by for some reason. And and I just would think I needed to do that immediately. And that was the beginning of my boundaries with her, to and healthy for both of us, because I wanted to be present with her, but I was feeling very resentful at the beginning. And then once I started setting the boundaries, I could just be with her present and love her for who she is, and and say, okay, I can't do that until such and such a night. That's when I was writing it into my calendar and saying, okay, I'll be there on Friday at this time. I'll be there on Sunday at this time. And that just was so freeing for me
Yeah.
to, and I felt like a much kinder person and aligned with who I am. And also, I just felt like I was a kind daughter, the person I wanted to be, rather than who I was becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's move into exercise then, talking
Hmm.
about that. So, because your schedule is all over the place, there were a couple of blocks. One is how do I fit this in? Because my schedule is all over the place. I can't really dedicate a specific time. And two was that, well, although your husband is supportive, he doesn't work out. And you don't feel the most comfortable working out around him. And so there was a barrier about doing workouts at home. So, talk about some of those barriers and then talk about like where you're at with movement.
So a couple barriers were, one, I really thought I wanted to work out and do something, following weights or something, whether it was what, online, and the barrier was it would be in their basement. And it wasn't until you had said, well, there's different options, and I've had different clients do this and that, and one of my clients doesn't like to work out because it's in the basement, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's me too. So it was like I never really put it together like that. And so I love to walk. So I was doing lots of walking. And and then I thought, oh, it'd be really great to get biking again. And one of the things that biking helped too this year was because we had so many mosquitoes. So I didn't walk. I didn't get back to. I still haven't gotten back to walking a whole lot yet. Um, so I just get on my bike and I go. I put my um, AirPods in one ear so I can hear the traffic in the other. And then it's really wonderful time, whether it's an audiobook or a podcast or whatever, music. And I just go and I just feel very free, and I feel like I'm really connected to God because I feel God and nature all around. And it's rejuvenating rather than a job or work.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when you first came in, you thought it had to look a certain way, movement had to look a certain
Ugh,
way. And we know the benefits of weightlifting as you age in particular. But for you, it just wasn't where we needed to start or the season that we were in. It's not to say we can't do that later on, but it's like there were too many kind of red lights happening for you to make it happen. And so we had to find something that was not going to have red lights for you, and you found biking, and it served you in many different ways. One as exercise, but two is like you didn't have to answer phones, you didn't have to answer emails, you didn't have to do
yeah,
any of that,
for
right? You
sure.
didn't have to be worried about judgment or anything like that. It was just like I could just go.
Yeah. And swimming was another thing in the summer too. So they're seasonal things maybe, but I have some options to use a bike trainer and do that at home and inside. And I probably will go into the fall or winter season and start with the weight training, and then build on that hopefully too.
Yeah, I like that because it's a progression, right? So one,
Yeah.
you're saying, hey, different seasons of me, I want to do different things. And I don't know necessarily that everybody gives themselves permission to do that. And number two is you're starting off with, this is where I'm at. This is where there's less green lights. And then you're saying, okay, less red lights. And then you're saying, okay, as more red lights start to open up, and then I can invite something else. For example, resistance training, whereas most people start with kind of where they think they should be or where their end is, and they work backwards from there. We're just trying to say start with where you're at and then gradually build up.
Yeah, and I can't take credit for that. That is totally because of you, Cindy, because you helped me not see it as an all or nothing, not saying you have to be this way and you have to start this way. I can be who I am, where I'm at, the age I'm at, my flexibility, and even my strength has, like, I'm getting a lot stronger than I was, but um I can see progressing a little bit at a time, and I look forward to those other opportunities, whatever they might be, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And that brings me to the next one is this all or nothing thinking. And it was interesting when we talked because I don't think that there was awareness around the all or nothing thinking.
Well, I knew I did it. I know I'm an all or I'd be say I'm all or nothing, but I wasn't mindful of it or conscious of what what I was saying or thinking at the time. It was just that's who I am, not thinking that I could be someone different.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
think,
love that you said it like that because you're like, hey, it's my identity versus a habit pattern that I've fallen
yeah,
into. And so that it came up a lot in different ways. So when every time we did like a video chat like this and we were diving into it, it would come up in different pieces, and then we could make the connection to, okay, well, let's connect that back to our body or nutrition or exercise. We can always, but I think that you were like, hey, this is who I am, but we weren't seeing how it was affecting. Even just when you said like, hey, I did herbal magic, you did herbal magic good, like you did it all in, right?
it
Until
all in
nothing.
minus 2 pounds, or add. I wanted to get 2 pounds, and that's when I fell off the wagon. That's how that's how that's how strict I was.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then all those different approaches didn't allow space for how do you integrate God into that? Because you're very spiritual. How do you integrate all these feelings? You had some pretty heavy feelings around grief, around your identity, not feeling worthy, not feeling like you matter, not feeling peaceful or in alignment. So can you just talk about the importance? Because I think like mindset is a really big word that gets tossed around, and it's either thought of, I don't know what that is, I don't know how to do it, so let me forget about it and just focus on nutrition and exercise. Or it's some people will think, well, I'll just lose the weight. Once I lose the weight, then I'll figure out the mindset pieces. But it was a really big part of you being here today, you feeling like you matter, you're worth it, and peaceful. So can you just talk about that?
Um, yeah, and I think one of the things is just being here today. I don't like to. I'm not comfortable talking about myself. So, and I think that goes back to my own self-worth and that and so for anyone who would be feeling that they don't feel like they're worth it, or I can assure you that you are. I would want somebody to hear that, because what people put on the facade we put on the outside isn't always who's on the inside for a lot of us. And that I am so proud to say that I am becoming much more the same in alignment that way, that now I feel like I'm that person. Um, I guess I'd ask you, can you ask me that question again?
I
Because
left it pretty broad for you because I
yeah.
we were talking about how mindset is a really broad topic for you, and like those other approaches didn't give you room to be who you are and your feelings and your thoughts and all that.
Um, yeah, because I I guess I have am strongly influenced by what other people think and what I think they expect of me. And so that I put that on and then would lose myself. And so that then it just feels like too heavy a burden to what do I do next?
Yeah, that's pretty common too when women aren't clear about who they are, where they're going, what their targets are. And I think for you, when we first started talking, like, you said moving again, getting healthy and losing weight, pretty vague targets to hit, right? And so we got clear as we went along. But when you don't have the clarity on who you are and where you're going and what the goals are, then it's easy to fall into the paths of everybody else. So meaning somebody else will call you and be like, I need you. It's easy to drop stuff and go to their path and then feel more misaligned with who you are or where you're going because you don't know where you're going. It's like you're walking in the forest. You know you got to be in the forest. You know you got to make it somewhere, but you're not really sure how long you've been in the forest or where you're going. You just know you need to be there versus knowing like you're in the forest and you have the clear path and you know what time you're going to get there and you know the way there. That's a different feeling. And so I like that you pointed that out because I think like you were lost in the very beginning. And as we developed clarity, that's when the boundaries became clearer for you, even though they were still a work in progress. They became clearer for you because you now knew your own path versus falling into everybody else's. Did I kind of get that?
Yes. Yeah. And also just making the time to go out on a bike ride and saying like I'm going, and to my family as much as to anyone else, and not feeling guilty that I was doing that, or when I got back feeling guilty that, oh, I missed somebody's call. I know I need that time for me because I am worth that. And goes back to putting on your oxygen mask first so you can help other people. And I was so burnt out I didn't realize, and for all those other reasons too.
Yeah. And so go with that analogy. So the analogy of put on your own oxygen mask, because I think everybody's heard that,
Yeah.
but not everybody knows how to practice that. And so now you've learned how to put your oxygen mask on. What does that give you back? What's the return on that investment of putting on in terms of your relationships, your career? the way you view yourself?
Uh, one, I'm much clearer in my thinking. That's a big part of it. Because in my spirit and my physical body too, I feel rejuvenated, and I can have a conversation with someone and not be thinking, oh, I hope I remember this. Will I remember this? And get caught in my own thinking off in my own brain, and it's off in the back of my head, and trying to be present with someone. That's one of just a general reality. And then the other part is, I know that I show up, people have seen and told me that they've seen changes in me, just in how I am present, and they're happy to see that I'm looking refreshed and feeling good and energized. And I know that we live behind one of the churches, and I laughed because the one day I literally ran over to the church, and I ran back, and then I thought, that's the first time I've done that probably in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, so I was, it was just an automatic, I was feeling good and I did that, and it was not a conscious thing. But afterwards I thought, wow, I do feel really good inside and out, and I'm feeling a lot more in
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. I want to go back to this idea of feeling like you didn't matter and you're not worth it. So if you're feeling like that, it's got to make eating right, working, like moving your body, it's got to make all that harder. Because when I think about a plant, like I'm don't know how to can't keep a plant alive. When I think about a plant and I think about, well, if I don't really care if that plant dies or what it looks like or whatever, I stop nurturing it, I stop watering it, I start putting it in the sun, I stop rotating it, whatever that looks like, right? And I think about, as humans, we would do the same thing. If I don't matter, I'm not worth it. But here you were feeling that way, and I know it feels different now, but you made investments into that anyway, even though you felt like it didn't matter, you're not worth it. Do you have any insight on that? Because I think a lot of women come to me and they think, in one sense, they feel like I should matter, I should be worth it, but I don't feel that way. And then it becomes translates in, I have no willpower, I have no discipline, I have no motivation, because we're not willing to look at, well, why don't I matter? Why am I not worth it? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, and I think I think a big part of it is that it's not relying, we always think it has to rely on our willpower and our discipline first, but that, what I learned is it's about my mindset first, and being kind to myself. And so starting out, um, you were my biggest cheerleader. And then I had three friends that, well, my daughter and two friends that completely, were completely supportive. And so I would say that I, I, I didn't feel that I mattered. I was exhausted in everything too. And uh, reconnecting to see the relationships in my life that mattered. And through the grief, by recognizing there was grief around my dad, because I still miss him dearly today, but I can miss him and feel happy now. And at the beginning of the program, I couldn't do that. I would be in complete tears because I just completely missed him. And allowing myself to work to be vulnerable and work through that, like whether journaling or talking through it with you, to recognize that he was one of my strongest supporters. And so how can I support myself in a way that would feel that he had supported me,
Mhm.
and recognizing that it's important to support myself whether there's people around me supporting me, and because ultimately I am worth it.
Yeah.
But it's such an internal journey that it's hard to articulate.
Yeah. 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 And even for myself watching you go through it, it's hard for me to articulate it because it was just a bunch of little things
Oh,
just came together, which couldn't
yeah.
have came together without you being vulnerable and sharing. Yeah. So as we wrap up, and you are, let's say there's a woman who's watching this, and she's like, "I've tried it all. I also feel like I'm not worthy, and I don't matter, and I also feel really disconnected. But I feel like I've tried everything, and I'm 50 now too, and I'm doomed. This is my direction. This is me." What do you have to say to that woman?
I would say, please, please, please don't think that you're not worth it. Um, because this program has allowed me to flourish in ways that I could never have imagined. So I would encourage that person to, I mean, Cindy is the best. She is she is very kind and blunt and
Kind and blunt.
yeah, and you know, I and it might feel like tough love, or it might feel like, why is she asking me this? I don't want to. And because there were lots of times when I could feel the little hairs on my neck kind of stand up, and I'd think, why is she saying that? And then I'd say, no, she is my coach. She wants the best for me. So my internal dialogue there was really important to go through and just to say, okay, no, she wants the best for me. You know, and she is my coach. She wants this for me. And so she's asking me this because there's a reason for it. She's asking me this because she knows your hackles will go up. She wants you to go deeper. And so I think for anyone who's questioning, there's just a deeper place to go that in 3 months I didn't realize I could love myself as much as I do now. And I just can't, I couldn't even express. I just would say you've got to try it, and that's the only way you can believe it. And take the plunge, because um you're worth any amount of money. It wouldn't even matter the dollar signs. And a lot of people say that, well, you know, I would, oh, I don't have time, or it's not the right time. Um, I've used all those excuses. And since Jen told me 2 years ago, that was part of it. But I knew I knew once I heard about it, I knew that the time would come that I would take the plunge.
Mhm.
So someone might hear this right now and say, it's not right now, but please put it in the back of your mind and come back to it, because it's given me my life back and
Aw.
need it. And my relationship with God is so much better, that, and I want people to know him the way that I've come back to him
Mhm.
because of
Yeah.
you. Your
Well, what a
program.
powerful message too to share with your community as well. Is, because I'm sure others have also lost their way with him, and what a powerful message to share, to say like, it's okay to lose your way. Let's
Yeah.
figure out how to come back.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Deb, for sharing your journey. Again, if you were here with us, send Deb some love in the comments, but also just what resonated with you, what hit home, because that's how we're going to send Deb some love and say, like, thanks, Deb, for being vulnerable and sharing with us. So thank you so much, Deb.
All right.